Hey guys, welcome back to Ballymellon Farm. For those of you that are watching for the first time, I'm Lance. Behind the camera at the moment is my wife Claire. You'll be meeting her shortly. So it's autumn time here on the farm at the moment, and you're going to come along with us today while we do some soil testing. So a lot of our goals on the farm are related, sort of based around sustainability or trying to be more sustainable. So obviously one of the things that we don't want to be doing is putting fertiliser on the farm that is more than what is needed. And we would quite like to eventually sort of move as much as possible away from conventional fertilisers. We're really lucky on the farm here because so we bought it from my mum and dad about 6 years ago, and the farm's always had a really good fertiliser history. It was something that mum and dad really believed in doing well, and so when we bought the farm we were able to avoid putting a lot of capital fertiliser on, so that was a way that we could save a fair bit of money, but also that we sort of could say, right, we're not putting on fertiliser that's not needed. We can mine a bit of that fertility that's there. But we're at that stage now where we need to make sure that we're not mining that fertility too far. So we haven't done a proper soil test on the farm since 2020, so 4 years ago. And some of the reason for that is COVID and everything else. But one of our big goals this year is to make sure we do a full soil test over the farm, and we get those results analysed, and then we can make a plan going forward of what we're going to do as far as putting on capital fertiliser. So we'll show you a bit more of how we do it shortly, but we do soil tests with this machine. I was actually given this by a friend of mine who's now passed away, but we'll show you shortly how that works. But that takes core samples of the soil. So we're going to be working across the farm, trying to sort of take a sample from different areas of the farm. So obviously the effluent block, where our effluent from the cowshed goes, will be different fertility than other parts of the farm. So we want to make sure that we're trying to kind of, how would you say, sort of separate those areas out. In the instructions they say make sure that you're not taking samples from areas like gateways or along hedges, places like that where cows might have camped or spent a lot of time, because that'll kind of skew the results. And also avoid obviously taking samples in paddocks you've just put fertiliser on, or avoid putting a sample straight through a cow poo or something like that. So this is our first time doing it ourselves. We usually get the fert rep to do it, but we thought, hey, we've got the tools, let's go get out there and do it. So we're going to crack on, and we're going to do some filming, show you what we're doing, and we'll talk a bit more along the way. Soil's pretty dry. Some of the other tips that they give you with doing soil testing and taking samples is they suggest zigzagging across the area, or diagonally. Some say even in a W shape or a M shape if you want to do it the other way around. And that is to try and get a true representation of the entire area, rather than just going in a straight line up the middle of the paddock or something like that. Like I said, avoid any areas where there's heavy traffic from livestock, or probably also heavy traffic from vehicles too, because they tend to compact the soil, or else, you know, it might skew the results. Like I said, we split the farm into different areas. So we have the front half of the farm is about 50 hectares that we own, and then we also lease about 30 hectares. The two areas are really quite different. The lease land has a vastly different sort of fertility history than the front half of the farm. So it's probably an area that we need to concentrate on getting a bit more fertiliser on than the front. So it doesn't make sense for us to join those two areas. So we're making sure that we're taking different samples from those two areas, so that we know the results for the different areas. So the back half of the farm may need more fertiliser than the front. We might find that the front doesn't need any. I would say the effluent area, where the effluent from the cowshed is spread, won't need any, because that's always getting a lot of effluent, which has obviously great natural fertility in it. So yeah, we're going to crack on, and we'll show you some more of what we're doing. awesome flavour in this paddock.
Yeah, these paddocks actually look quite nice, don't they?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see the difference in fertility over here towards the back. So something that is quite common on New Zealand dairy farms, tend to find that the paddocks at the back of the farm have less natural or less fertility than the front, and a lot of that is just because you tend to graze those paddocks less. They're further away from the shed, so those are the paddocks you quite often shut up for hay and silage and stuff, so the cows are actually back there less, and you know, not pooing and weeing on them as much, so that sort of natural fertility doesn't spread back that way as much. So I know when we did the last soil test 4 years ago, that was definitely the case, so it'll be really interesting to see what the results say this time around. So just something that we thought we'd say, well, we've come across it here. Just a couple of paddocks here on the lease that have been really bad with weeds this year. Really thick with Californian thistles, which we've sort of killed, and we've undersowed these paddocks with new grass to try and get some new grass into them because they've really underperformed this year. It was really interesting noticing when we're taking samples through here that this paddock the ground was really hard, and they say with Californian thistles it's quite often an indication that the ground can be compacted, which I think is definitely the case in this place. So something that we're sort of looking into researching at the moment is doing some aerating, getting some so putting a machine through to aerate the soil, which will hopefully mean that the callies will not grow the same in those areas. So just thought really interesting while we were walking through here to note that. That's the first little area done. So that's a bag full of soil samples there, called L2, which is lease 2. So we've started at the back of the farm, lease 2. We're going to go do the front half of the lease now, and then move on to the home farm. So we'll carry on. Yeah. So it's something that we've noticed a lot in this part of the farm. So we're now what we're going to call lease 1, which is the front half of the lease. Lots of clover in these pastures, and clover is an awesome plant because it actually fixes nitrogen into the ground naturally. So it can suck nitrogen, I think it's nitrates or nitrites, out of the atmosphere and converts it into nitrogen. And then releases that into the soil, which helps the plants grow. So it's a pretty awesome plant to have. So it's fantastic to see so much of it in here, and also a great feed for stock. You know, one of the goals that we have as far as sustainability at the moment is we'd like to introduce more species into our pastures. So for a long time in New Zealand it was pushed sort of ryegrass and white clover and just those two, and you kind of went around and sprayed everything else. But so we like to get some more plants like this, like plantain, chicory, and so on, the dandelion, and they all have their benefits. Cows can get quite a lot of trace minerals from a lot of these plants, so it's one of our goals. But yeah, awesome as we're walking around here today to see so much clover. Okay, so earlier on at the start of the video, I just talked about they suggest not to do certain areas. So this is a good example of an area. This is a gateway to the paddock. So the cows were in this paddock yesterday, and then they've just gone through to the paddock across there. And as you can see, it's been well trodden down, but it's also full of effluent and urine. So if we were to take samples from this, it would really skew the data. So something else which is probably worth mentioning is that in Taranaki you're never really far away from the mountain. So the top of it's not out today, but Mount Taranaki's in behind the cloud there, and Taranaki Mountain, Taranaki Maunga, is responsible for all the soils that we actually have. So highly volcanic soils, so they actually really naturally have a really good fertility in them, which we're really lucky about, because we can pretty much grow anything here. As far as soil goes, really good quality topsoil. It's not really clay or really sandy like other parts of New Zealand have, so something that we're really lucky about. Also the change in elevation really fast in Taranaki, because from the mountain to the sea is in quite a short distance. We flip around, you'll see over behind me here is the Tasman Sea in the distance. So the distance between mountain and sea is not that far, so the elevation changes really quickly. So even from the back of our farm to the front of our farm is a huge difference. So the climate changes quite fast, soil type changes quite fast. So just some of those things that you have to take in mind with your farm management. So the tool I should say that we use to take soil samples, so this is for taking soil core samples. So here's two different depths. So for doing in pasture, they recommend doing 7.5 centimeters. So this is this end. In arable, or they say orchards, you want to do 100 or 15 centimeters, which is this end. So all we do is push it into the ground up to that point, step on it, pull it out, and then our soil sample nicely slides, it's behaved itself and come out for me out there. So catch as much of the soil as you can, put them in the bag. So we're just in the process of testing here the block here that we call the effluent block, which is where all the effluent from the cowshed is spread. So in New Zealand you have to these days be land-based application, so it's pumped from the cow shed and spread through an irrigator onto the pasture. But at times of the year when the water table's too high or when there's too much rain, you're not allowed to spread, so you have to have storage for it. So just down here behind us at the moment, we're actually having a storage tank installed. So that's 600,000 litres, which is supposed to be able to hold about 3 months of effluent from the cow shed. So through that time, especially in early spring when we first start calving, but there's quite a lot of rain through that period, and you're not allowed to obviously spread to pasture because the effluent can go basically wash straight through into underground streams or something and end up in waterways. So we will pump into that, and then the great thing about that is that we'll then be able to have contractors empty that tank and spread it over the rest of the farm. So like I mentioned when we were out the back earlier on, those back paddocks quite often miss out on that natural fertility where the effluent paddocks have had it for 30 or 40 years. So it will be great to be able to take some of that effluent from out of the tank, spread it on the back half of the farm and spread some of that great natural fertility around. Cool, so we've finished our walk around, got our steps in for the day. So the thing we're going to do now is we've got all our bags bagged up. Each one is labelled with the area that we took it from, so that's home 3. Also got to put our farm name on it so that the company, the lab company knows which client it's for. So we'll do that to each one. And then as well as that, for each sample we need to fill out a lab request form. So this just tells them, so all of our details for soil sample, the soil sample identification, obviously home 3 for that one. Did I say home 3? I did. And then which testing we want, so we need to fill out a form like that for each of the samples we took, and we'll send that all away to the lab with each sample. And then also on a farm map here, we're just really roughly quite quickly marking the areas that we sampled each area from, so that when we get the results back later on, we know where those results are from. But anyway, thank you for watching, and in the future, once we get our soil results back, we'll talk through more of that, what the results say, and then hopefully we can start putting a fert plan together and we can talk through more of that with you as well. But anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.